Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The Prime Minister stands firm on his bombshell allegation.
The government of India needs to take this matter with the utmost seriousness.
While India angrily denies any involvement in the shooting death of a BC Sikh man. Plus, a small community on Vancouver Island on edge as two young men recover from a bus stabbing. And river levels hit historic lows on parts of Vancouver Island.
It's definitely frightening.
The worry as the salmon return to dry streams.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Reaction is growing across Canada and around the world in the wake of explosive allegations that India arranged the killing of a BC Sikh man. The diplomatic rift is widening. Tonight, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is doubling down and India is denying any involvement in Hardeep Singh Nijjar's death. But as CBC's Marina von Stackelberg explains, Canadian allies are calling for a thorough investigation.
The Prime Minister says Canada will make sure those responsible for the murder of a Sikh Canadian will be held to account.
India and the government of India needs to take this matter with the utmost seriousness. We are doing that. We are not looking to provoke or escalate. We are simply laying out the facts as we understand them.
Trudeau says intelligence officials have credible evidence linking agents of the Indian government to the murder of Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was shot to death outside this Surrey Gurdwara in June. Nijjar was an outspoken critic of India's government and supported an independent Sikh state.
Hardeep Singh Nijjar had publicly mentioned the threat to his life for months.
National Muslim and Sikh organizations say they are not surprised the killing is being linked to India's government. They say it was only a matter of time before something like this happened on Canadian soil.
And there are a number of Canadian Sikhs that have been identified as having a threat to their life, and we are asking for the government of Canada to provide protection for these Sikhs in Canada.
I mean, in Canada, if you cannot have an opinion about another foreign government without having to worry about walking outside and worrying is there going to be a foreign agent that's going to gun you down in the streets, what's going on?
India's government denies any involvement in the shooting. The NDP want the public inquiry into foreign interference to investigate India's actions in Canada's affairs.
Given these allegations, there's no doubt now that India should be included in the public inquiry and that any and all forms of interference need to be investigated thoroughly.
Canada's allies are calling for a thorough investigation with the Indian government's full cooperation. Still, the United Kingdom and the United States both said today they will continue trade talks with India despite Canada's allegations. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, some members of the Sikh community here in BC say they're concerned for their safety, worried what happened to Nijjar could happen again. As Lindsay Duncombe reports, they are calling for immediate action.
For those who knew Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who shared in his activism, fear they could be targeted too.
Do you feel scared?
Yeah, I mean, we do actually. Yes, we do.
Why?
You know, we face many threats,
Nijjar was known around the world for his support for an independent Sikh state, a movement India sees as extremist. To that country, he was a terrorist. To his community, a hero, now a martyr. Nijjar was gunned down outside his Gurdwara in June. Violence CSIS had reportedly warned him about. In the 3 months since his killing, Sikh separatists say the RCMP has been in touch.
According to them, they are doing their best. That's what they told the activists, that, they are trying to protect us.
Still, this is a community rattled by rumors.
Everyone has heard that they're being here, the spies are here all over the Surrey especially, and there is still some of the Sikhs are still not safe here.
Canada's Sikh community is the largest outside of India, and there are calls for Canadian law enforcement to do more.
People should not have to be worried about getting shot when they're walking out of a place of worship in Canada.
Politicians are promising to protect communities,
But we need to keep people safe in British Columbia.
And until we, look
but they may not be able to, warns this former law enforcement leader and security consultant. He says legal barriers keep agencies from sharing information, making Canada an easy target.
I honestly don't see things changing, and I actually only see them getting worse because we're getting more well-known, for being, the soft underbelly of Western democracies.
Vancouver police say they have increased police presence around the Indian consulate downtown. Another sign divisions rooted so far away, building for so long, are causing very real security concerns here in Canada. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
And in India, Ottawa's accusations are getting a lot of attention, with Indian officials calling the allegations absurd. Our Salima Shivji is in Mumbai and has the local reaction there.
Now expelling a senior Canadian diplomat.
As the news broke Tuesday morning, India's news media shifted into gear. The government's reaction was swift and stern. Canada's High Commissioner was summoned and told that one of his senior diplomats was being kicked out of the country. India's message to Canada, the allegations our government was involved in the killing of a Sikh leader in BC, are absurd. Stop giving space to the Kalistani movement for an independent Sikh nation and stop interfering in our internal affairs. With security tighter than ever around Canada's High Commission in New Delhi, some protesters elsewhere in the country loudly denounced Canada's Prime Minister. The streets of Mumbai were quieter than usual on a Hindu holiday, but not the opinions. I'm angry, this man says, that Canada's Prime Minister thinks of political posturing at home instead of his relationship with India. Others say the allegations are weak.
There's a direct impact of it, and I think these need to be more well researched before actually going and saying such things on the public forum.
Easiest thing for a person is to accuse somebody. The toughest part is to find a solution. I think Mr. Trudeau should have tried and found a solution out of it. He should have investigated, and then if he could prove that India is behind it, that is the time when he should have issued a statement. He issued a statement just in thin air.
Next year in Canada.
For many Indian analysts, it was a shocking move verging on political faux pas.
Canada and India are not adversaries, they are friends. And why bring that relationship under increasing strain? Making an allegation at this stage was not just unusual, but imprudent in my view.
After the G20 laid bare just how tense relations are between the two leaders, says this counter-terrorism expert.
You do not accuse another country of assassination until you have moved from credible allegations to credible evidence. It has been an extremely immature, extremely irresponsible statement and action thereafter.
Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
That's Salima Shivji reporting tonight. Now, coming up, we'll hear from a former intelligence officer on the challenges Canada will face with this case, and I'll speak live with the professor on how local communities here are impacted and what happens next. We're learning more tonight about a stabbing in Souk on Vancouver Island. A teenage boy and his 23-year-old friend are recovering in hospital after the attack as they got off a bus on Saturday. As Emily Vance reports, police have arrested another young man, but no charges have been laid at this point.
I don't know how big the knife was, but I was hit 3 times in the back and 3 in my right arm before my buddy came and saved my life.
It was a bus ride turned violent for friends Cameron Martin and Nike Dent. 17-year-old Martin says things began to get heated when another young man boarded the bus they were on. The two friends say they began criticizing the 21-year-old over his dating life. Martin says he was stabbed as he got off the bus with wounds that went between his ribs, punctured a lung, and severed an artery. That's when Nike Dent stepped in.
If I didn't do anything, I thought he was going to die, so that's why I went out to go help him. And then I started getting, stabbed as well.
Paramedics rushed both to Victoria General Hospital in critical condition.
And he bled out into his chest cavity 3 different times the first night and had to have blood transfusions until they could stop the internal bleeding.
Police say they arrested a suspect close by. Both victims claim they don't know the alleged attacker personally, but RCMP believe they were known to each other. BC Transit says it's working with police, and Mounties are hoping someone with video will contact them.
We're still investigating the relationship between all the parties involved, and that's why it's really important if people do have information to please contact the Sikh detachments.
No one has been charged yet, though RCMP expect they will be soon.
For 9 hours, I was wondering if he was going to make it or not.
Both young men's parents say it's not the first time they've feared for their children's safety in Sikh. Amber Lalonde moved here 17 years ago.
From a safe place where you could let your kids play outside and go out and enjoy yourself to now you have to watch your back.
I know it's never safe to walk around. I just never thought that that day would be the day.
Sikh RCMP argue there is no risk to the public.
I would have no problem taking the bus tomorrow. I would have no problem walking on the streets in Sikh.
But for the families of these two young men, their return to school and work could take a long time. Emily Vance, CBC News, Victoria.
15 people are charged with mischief a year after a violent clash at a music event at the PNE. Some of the attendees at the Breakout Festival last September caused more than $300,000 in property damage after Lil Baby, one of the headline performers, canceled at the last minute. The VPD Major Crime Section identified suspects using video captured by security cameras at the PNE Amphitheatre, as well as cell phone footage.
From this video, they were able to get a very good appreciation for who did what during this event. And they focused on the people that were the most heinous in their behavior. We didn't go after everybody.
The 15 suspects are all men who were between the ages of 15 and 22 at the time of the incident. All but 3 of the suspects are from communities outside of Vancouver. Well, new data from TransLink is showing overcrowding on public transit is worsening across Metro Vancouver. This summer, transit services saw 14 million more boardings than last summer, and transit ridership in Surrey and Langley is at 120% of pre-COVID levels as the number of people coming to Metro Vancouver grows by about 50,000 each year. Mayors in the region fear if new service is not added, transit will not be able to keep up with the increase.
We are really, really in need of better public transit, and it is at the point, as Mayor West talked about, it is really hampering our ability to build in our city. It is starting to impact our ability to produce housing.
The Mayor's Council is urging the provincial and federal governments to commit funding for a transit expansion plan called Access for Everyone. This plan aims to double bus service, build new rapid bus lines, and increase funding for active transportation infrastructure in the next decade. The council says the plan needs funding no later than June 2024 to stay on track. Well, Joffrey Lakes Provincial Park reopened to the public today, more than 3 weeks after it was abruptly closed by the Lil'wat and Inquatqua First Nations north of Whistler. CBC was invited to tour the area yesterday, and as Maura Whiten tells us, the nation has concerns for the future of the park.
Quiet roads and a nearly empty parking lot, rare sights at the popular park, but welcomed by the Lil'wat and Inquatqua First Nations for their harvest activities.
For our people, they are, harvesting, and mostly just seeing and experiencing the beauty and without the crowds, without the populations there.
Nelson says the First Nations were exercising their title rights when they originally planned to close the park until September 30th. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And while the province called the move sudden, Nelson says it had ignored the nation's growing concerns about traffic and litter as the park's popularity exploded.
As we move towards reconciliation, we're looking, to have our voice, to have access to any and all lands that we know are ours, and, just to have access to them when we want to, not when the BC parks say that we can. So this is the very tip of the iceberg, I would say, that we're exercising our right to have all of that.
The park reopened today following an agreement between both nations and the province. It will be closed again on September 30th for ceremonies to thank the land. BC's Environment Minister says the deal shows the province's strong commitment to reconciliation and it will continue to work with the Lilwat and Naquaqua on a long-term plan. Some would-be visitors were a day too soon on Monday, but said they understood why the park was closed.
We wanted to do it, but yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, the lake, I mean, I saw it all over Instagram and TikTok, and it's really, really beautiful. The pictures seem nice and the videos as well, but there's a lot of different lakes in the area as well, so we'll just check those out.
Nelson says visitors should learn about the land, and this reopening is only the beginning of a permanent solution.
Pushing forward to reconciliation, and there has to be some major gestures of that, some movement.
BC Park says visitors need free day passes until October 9th, and the backcountry camping season will end on November 13th. Moira Whiten, CBC News, Vancouver.
This summer was BC's worst ever wildfire season, something that the official opposition, BC United, is pledging to tackle with new wildfire preparedness and recovery policy reforms.
We can't afford to wait any longer. It's time for decisive action to protect our communities, our environment, and our economy.
The party says its 5-point plan will modernize firefighting services, make better use of local expertise and response teams, speed up support for evacuees, and improve forest management and prevention. Vancouver Island has been in drought level 5 for nearly 2 months, with river levels hitting historic lows. As Claire Palmer reports, the situation has people worried, especially as salmon return to dry streams and rivers.
While rivers are normally low at this time of year, this year it's unprecedented. A combination of dry weather last fall, a low snowpack from this past winter, and a hot summer have all contributed to the historic low levels.
Well, I've been involved with operations for 23 years. I've never seen a summer to this degree and how dry it's been. It's the lowest we've seen in terms of water inflows coming to the system.
And we've seen really dry springs and really dry falls, but we haven't yet seen a really dry spring and fall. This may be that year, and if it's not this year, it's likely to be very soon. So that's definitely frightening.
Typically, a target flow would be nearly 16 cubic meters per second. Last Monday, that was dropped down to 8. With salmon returning, it's important to keep those levels high for spawning. Locals have noticed the impact that the low levels have had on the salmon.
I'd like the fish to stay, so if, as long as the water levels don't go too far down that they can't make it in between the two big pools, that would be very sad. I wouldn't want our fish to go away, and snagging gear because the water level's low sucks.
Much of the Comox Valley is in water restriction level 3. That means no lawn watering, no washing of cars or boats at private residences, no power washing, and no filling pools, hot tubs, or ponds.
Being water wise really helps. And it's not a lot of difference people may think, but it does add up over time. And so, we will get through this. We learn from these events, and we're managing the system the best we can, but I think everyone has a bit of a role to play.
So we have a strong interest in making sure that people understand the nature of the kind of the water emergency and take steps to adjust their water conservation measures in line with the changes that we're seeing to the climate.
Water flow from the rivers is used for domestic water supply, irrigation, recreation, as well as supplying power across the island. While there's some rain in the forecast, it'll take more than a sprinkle to restore river levels. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Courtney.
Let's bring in Darius Madavi now. And Darius, obviously rain for a lot of parts of British Columbia at this point. Is that doing anything to help us?
Hopefully, yes, but I don't think one day of rain is going to make the difference. As we head into fall, hopefully we will continue to see this increased rainfall, but for now, I wouldn't expect to see the drought levels budge too much just as a result of today, because today is probably our one wet day this week for most of the province, not everywhere. We have seen temperatures stay down around seasonal or just below seasonal, so that's good in terms of drought because it means the water won't evaporate quite as quickly. If we take a look at our satellite and radar, you can see we have seen some rain passing over the island. There was some for the north as well, although the radar doesn't seem to have picked it up, but it probably won't be enough to budge the drought situation, all the issues that we just heard about. And as we look over the next 24, 36 hours, it's just going to be a little bit more rain, mostly for the North Island and for the East Coast, potentially for Victoria as well. I believe they're seeing some showers right now. But again, not too much rainfall happening as we head into the next day or two. So in terms of drought, I guess we just hope for more rain as we head into the next week, because it is looking like we're going to dry up quite a bit, and we'll take a closer look at that later this hour. But for those of us here in Metro Vancouver, we still get some more rain as we head into tonight. As we get probably overnight, we'll see that rain taper off for tomorrow morning. Small chance of showers overnight, and quite a seasonal, sunny, little bit of cloud tomorrow morning. Should be a nice day.
All right, thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Coming up after the break, we have a live interview looking at the impact of Trudeau's allegations on India and why local diaspora communities are concerned. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream tonight. The federal government is extending the deadline for its small business pandemic loan program. But as David Ball reports, many BC retailers say the government's gesture has fallen short.
I've been fighting lately to save my business, and it's just because of various economic conditions.
North Vancouver's Tamara Novakoski says her Delish General Store is on the brink, thanks to inflation, lower sales, and a federal loan deadline in December. She owes Ottawa about $50,000. So this week, she was relieved when Ottawa extended the deadline to have a third of her debt forgiven.
And then I read that it was 2 weeks, and I thought, what good does that do anybody in my situation? It's just another bucket of water out of the sinking ship.
Through the pandemic, Ottawa loaned small businesses $49 billion. It helped thousands survive the pandemic slump. But the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses says 4 in every 5 BC borrowers have not repaid.
It seems they've really missed the point of what small businesses are struggling with the most. Our communities benefit from their bravery and from their hard work, and it's a slap in the face to be told that it just wasn't enough and that it's not going to cut it in time. So we hope that the government does extend the deadline for the forgivable portion of the loan so that these small business owners can make ends meet and continue to survive.
Canada's Finance Ministry says it extended the full repayment by 3 years. It's just the forgivable third that's due January 18th. But few say they can afford to lose up to $20,000 they were told was free.
Let's commit to making a certain amount of payments every month to show good faith and to show that you're chipping away at that. That would be such a relief for so many of us. I think it would save some businesses from going under. I have never been more at risk of going under, and it's never been a closer reality. I could go either way. I think it's just a matter of me making a very personal decision. And I'm not prepared to make that decision yet.
David Ball, CBC News, Vancouver.
Back to our top story now, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's allegations that India was involved in the killing of a BC Gurdwara leader in Surrey. This is just the latest concern of foreign interference in Canadian affairs. A former officer with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service says agencies don't have all the tools they need to investigate these kinds of matters.
One of the problems that exists is that we do not have a clear definition of what foreign interference is about. We've seen that problem, and many witnesses about the Chinese foreign interference testified about the lack of legal framework for the authority to be capable to investigate adequately and being capable to prevent that form of interference coming from India. So in that perspective, we definitely need to define the law so the law enforcement can have the right tools to interfere and to stop foreign interference and even prosecute foreign interference. In terms of trying to protect the community itself, we need the community also to come out and to express some of the concern that they have and to share information. One of the great problems with the investigation in that particular community is that fear is omnipresent. And the authority and people have not been capable to speak out sufficiently with the authority with the expectation that something will be done. And unfortunately, since the RCMP mainly has only the criminal code to work with, it's not sufficient. It's not been good enough at this point. CSIS, let's remind ourselves, has no power of arrest, has no police power at all, will not proceed with any arrest or prosecution. Worse, wants to avoid as much as possible to go to court. And that's another problem that we have to resolve within our intelligence and security community. The fact that CSIS is avoiding by all costs to go to court. And we all remember the fiasco that took place with Air India trial.
Okay, let's dive a little deeper now on how the allegations will impact our local communities. I'm joined live by Indira Prost, professor of sociology at Langara College. You know, BC is home to one of the largest Sikh populations outside of India. What sort of concern is there around fallout on the local diaspora with these allegations?
Well, I think the fact that the Prime Minister made a direct allegation regarding the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar with the Indian government is deeply disconcerting. And what it does, it has echoed the sentiments that some Sikh activists have had for several years. So safety is a very paramount focus. It resonates deeply. And I think questions are about what could have been done to prevent this death. We're hearing now more and more stories about how individuals were warned beforehand. So this is troubling, and I think that does require a lot of work and building trust again with the community to ensure that there is safety. But I think the big question is, what impact is this going to have on the activism of Sikhs for Kalistan in the future? And I think it's important to understand that the movement for Kalistan was an effect of grievances against Sikhs as well as their identity. If it's proven that there was a direct link between the Indian government and the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, that could lead to Sikh youth embracing Kalistan even more in the context of that particular activism being an effect of continued silencing and tactics that are taking place on Canadian soil to prevent them from speaking.
And, you know, we haven't seen any changes to travel advisories or anything like that because of the allegations, but both Canada and India have expelled diplomats since yesterday in what most are calling a tit for tat. We're getting into the months now where people here do start to travel to Punjab for the winter and the spring. How much caution do you think that people need to be taking here, if any, in terms of their planning?
I do think that that this is not to be underestimated in its effect. And for example, often stories have been told about assassinations that one would assume would only happen outside of Canada. So this is a hard reality that is hit. So it could very well lead to some families reconsidering their safety and also preventing their children from being active or publicly commemorating at events or publicly speaking, just for the sake of security. Other families may want to not provide any investment in India, economic investment by traveling to India, but I haven't heard that yet. It's still very early And I think we still have to hear how true these allegations are based on evidence.
Indira Pross is a professor of sociology at Langer College, joining us live tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
After dipping a bit, inflation is back on the rise, but it's not across the board. Where you're paying more and where you aren't is coming up.
Particular instrument we think was made in the 1890s. It came from New Zealand. We believe it was made in Scotland and then taken to New Zealand in the 1800s.
He plays on a Stradivarius of bagpipes, fitting for a man who is the Heifetz of pipers. Some would say 23-year-old Bruce Woodley from Richmond, BC, is the best player in the world.
It's just an interesting sounding instrument. It's very loud and sort of bold.
Woodley's reputation rests on his recent win at a bagpipe festival in Inverness, Scotland.
The long and the short of it is that all the great pipers of the past have all won gold medals. It's the World Championship of Bagpiping. I guess it's like winning a gold medal at the Olympics. This is the place to win.
I quote from the diary of Samuel Pepys, who wrote in 1668 about the best bagpiper he had ever heard. He did play beyond anything of that kind that ever I heard in my life, but with pains that the instrument doth not deserve at all, for at the best it is mighty barbarous music.
There's something stirring about having a large group of pipers marching towards you, all playing. The instrument produces on the order of 115 decibels each instrument. So it's a very inspiring instrument, or fearful instrument when played.
Through his bagpipe, Woodley communes with his roots in Scotland, but perhaps fitting for someone who lives outside that ancient land, his life is thoroughly modern. This student from Simon Fraser University does research for the NASA Space Shuttle. Bob Nixon, CBC News, Burnaby.
The murder trial into the deaths of 4 members of a Muslim family in southwestern Ontario heard from the defense today. The members of the Afzal family were killed when they were hit by a truck in June of 2021. The accused told London police he ran them over on purpose and that it was, in his words, terrorism. As Thomas Degla reports, now the defense is calling into question whether that statement should be considered reliable.
At Nathaniel Veltman's trial, the jury has been shown hours of video of the accused in London police custody after his arrest in June 2021. That video has now been released publicly, showing Veltman sleeping on a concrete slab behind bars and being taken into an interview room to face questions twice, first at 1 a.m. and then again at 10 a.m. Defense lawyer Christopher Hicks has been highlighting to the jury the conditions of Veltman's detention And the judge has told jurors the issue is not whether the police conduct was fair, but rather whether the conditions of Veltman's detention affected his state of mind or the reliability of his confession. Now remember, Veltman laid out to a detective that he was set on killing Muslims, and he explained how he'd become radicalized by consuming far-right conspiracy theories. The court has been hearing from Detective Micah Bordeaux, who interviewed the accused after the truck attack that killed 4 members of the Afzal family and seriously injured a young boy. The defense has pointed out the accused admitted to taking magic mushrooms and to feeling depressed and, in his words, gross before the attack, again calling into question whether Veltman is to be believed when he's heard confessing to police. In that video released by the court, Veltman is seen wearing a T-shirt with a spray-painted cross, meant as a nod to religious wars between Christians and Muslims. An officer is also seen handling the helmet and bulletproof vest that the accused was wearing when he was arrested. Veltman has pleaded not guilty to terrorism-motivated first-degree murder and attempted murder. Testimony will continue later this week. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada's overall inflation rate jumped to 4% in August, up from 3.3% in July. As the CBC's Anita Bathe reports, it's the second consecutive increase and bigger than expected.
Carlene Jack keeps a close eye on gas prices. These days, she's really feeling pinched.
If we're doing our truck to fill up, we are definitely looking at close to 200 fill.
She owns a yard care company. Keeping her machines running costs big bucks. And stubborn inflation is taking a toll.
As a business owner, family business, we also get this on the personal side too. So it's kind of like a double hit.
Prices at the pumps climbed almost 5% in August compared to the month before. It comes as Russia and Saudi Arabia cut crude supply, pushing oil prices up nearly 30% since June.
They're going to be high in the coming months. So don't be surprised if this high inflation is sticky and stays higher.
Canadians are also paying more in rent, as well as steep interest costs on mortgages. And while grocery prices aren't climbing as fast as before, shoppers may not see much change at the checkout.
$41.70. We're going to get some relief in terms of the inflation rate, but not necessarily what it costs you to actually go out and buy food and feed your family.
Inflation has dropped from a peak of 8.1% last year. The economy is slowing, the job market is cooling, but there's still a lot of demand.
Kind of like pushing on a string, right?
With inflation ticking up for the second month in a row, analysts say getting back to the 2% target won't be easy.
When you have, record population growth and then just wage growth filtering into inflation more broadly, those are the last real key pieces that are hard to break.
The Bank of Canada has raised interest rates 10 times over the past year and a half as it tries to rein in inflation. Earlier this month, the central bank chose not to hike rates any further, a pause to assess the impact on the economy. Odds of another interest rate hike have jumped on this latest inflation report. Still, there's lots more economic data the Bank of Canada will have to consider before it makes its decision next month. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
The UN General Assembly is meeting in New York. Today, members heard speeches from U.S. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. As our Chris Reyes reports, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is heading there to take part in talks on sustainability and the crisis in Haiti.
The 78th session of the UN General Assembly opened today. Leaders from all 193 member states of the UN get to take the podium to address the international community. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres opens the meeting.
Instead of ending the scourge of war, we are seeing a surge of conflicts, coups, and chaos. If every country fulfilled its obligations under the Charter, the right to peace would be guaranteed. When countries break those pledges, they create a world of insecurity for everyone.
U.S. President Joe Biden among the first speakers. His message that the U.S. is committed to the UN and to multilateral institutions, as well as reforming them to meet those 21st century challenges. He once again called for expanding the Security Council to be more inclusive. And on Russia, he said this.
Russia alone bears responsibility for this war. Russia alone has the power to end this war immediately. And it's Russia alone that stands in the way of peace, because Russia's price for peace is Ukraine's capitulation, Ukraine's territory, and Ukraine's children.
Perhaps one of the most anticipated appearances today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
I have the honor to welcome His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, and invite him to...
This is his first time to address the General Assembly in person since Russia attacked his country.
Please hear me. Let unity decide everything openly. While Russia is pushing the world to the final war, Ukraine is doing everything to ensure that after Russian aggression, no one in the world will dare to attack any nation.
Tomorrow, Zelensky is scheduled to address the Security Council.
Slava Ukraini.
Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
After the break, a nonprofit grocery store in the downtown East Side on a quest to combat food insecurity.
Devra Goldberg has been working at the Mount St. Vincent University Food Bank since she moved from Ecuador last winter. She says it's only getting busier.
So I was amazed because this Friday was the day that I have seen the most people ever. It was crazy. We have lots of volunteers. We have around 15 volunteers involved here, and we couldn't catch up with the demand of people coming.
The shelves were full of food on Friday and nearly empty by Monday.
Usually a lot of international students come, but now I was surprised to see that also local people were coming to see food on the food bank because they are also in need of these resources.
Over at NSCC's Ivany campus, support staff had students asking for financial help with groceries within the first few hours of the semester.
I'm not a physician or nutritionist, but I think we talk about all the time that you can't learn if you're hungry. Your brain needs calories to function. Your body needs calories to function, to think, to process. You know, it's stressful enough being a student. If you're stressed out and then your body is stressed because it doesn't have as much nourishment, it's going to be really hard to learn.
Students like Will McDougall find it hard to afford groceries, especially with the high costs of housing and tuition.
I find I have to make a lot of sacrifices day to day, you know, whether it be, do I eat breakfast this morning or do I wait and save it for lunch or whatever, right? So
it's both deeply impressive and deeply worrying to see students have to go through what it is that they're going through. And I feel like that there has to be something at all three levels of government and whatever that may be to help ease the burden of going to school.
Dalhousie University's food bank is no different. It sees at least 300 students per week. What used to be a place to get supplementary snacks, according to its manager of 8 years, is now somewhere that hundreds rely on.
See a lot of roommates show up. And between, if there's 3 of them, they each get to take a basket. So between the 3 of them, they will literally make up a meal plan that they can all have group meals within the whole week till they can come again.
Partnerships with Feed Nova Scotia are what help keep these food banks up and running. But they're all seeing the same trend: more hungry students and not enough food. Selena Alders, CBC News, Halifax.
Hey, I'm Johanna Wagstaff.
And hi there, I'm Rohith Joseph.
And we're asking for 10 minutes of your day to go through the 10 things that the UN recommends we can all do when it comes to climate change.
Please don't leave.
No.
And also, the things aren't new.
We are just wired to not do them.
We promise you to help you figure out your brains, and you and your people can make better choices to combat climate change.
10 Minutes to Save the Planet is available now on CBC Listen and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Nonprofit grocery market Quest has long been a community staple in the downtown East Side. Now it's opened the doors of its larger and permanent home on East Hastings. CBC was there to check out the new storefront.
Welcome to our East Vancouver downtown East Side grocery market location. Quest is a very special, unique grocery model. We aren't a food bank, but we also aren't a traditional grocery market. Our clients are referred to us. Once you have a referral and your Quest client card, you can come into any one of Quest's market locations when you want, as much as you want, and buy what you want. And that's the key piece. Our clients get to buy their own product, choose their own product at reduced prices.
This is a much bigger location. We have a walk-in cooler, so that's really, really good for us because, you know, when we put supplies in there, it's not, we just usually get like one case when in the other store of something, and then we run out, and then it's not so good, right? So, but because we have the walk-in cooler, we can store more product, and then when we run out, we just fill it up. All sorts of teas and drinks and coffees and, you know, produce, and we couldn't offer that much. We could offer product, but not as much at the other locations. It gives people a lot more independence when they come in, right? So that's a really great thing for people that are already facing challenges, and sometimes it can be difficult. And then when they can do stuff on their own, it's like really like, you know, it feels good inside when you get to be a little bit on your own side.
So I come once a week. It really saves, you know, because, you know, we're on old age pension, so we don't have the money that they want prices, you know, in different stores.
I mean, we want to take care of everyone walking through our doors, but the goal, the ultimate mission is to disrupt cycles of food insecurity. So we're this temporary bridge for folks to get back up on their feet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anita Bathe joins us now with a second look at the weather and I think the long range, whether or not we're going to see this rain continue.
Yes, that's exactly right. So we actually saw rain, not just rain, but also some snow on the mountaintops today. This is the first time I've seen it on the radar so far this year. So a little bit exciting, a little bit sad as we get into fall proper. But we did see rain through central BC, through parts of the southern interior, and make its way down the island. So a lot of it making its way to the south coast as well. That should continue, at least here in Vancouver, through this evening and into tomorrow, or sort of overnight. It should finish by the time we reach the morning. You can see here, still a little bit of buildup coming for the south coast. It's a little bit for the very southern reaches of the interior, and then for the Thompson and those sort of areas. But really, this is going to clear up by tomorrow, and then we're going to have some clear skies ahead. Temperatures do stay down from where they were last week, for sure. We were in the 30s last week. We're down into the high teens, the mid-teens for parts of the southern interior, so well below seasonal, 5 or 6 degrees below where it would usually be this time of year. Those come up a little bit as we head into Thursday, and then they come up a little bit more for Friday, but we're not getting back to those same levels we saw last week. I'd be surprised if we did again this fall, now that we're getting into sort of mid to end of September already. Wow. And so as we head into tomorrow, we can expect a little bit of smoke for the south coast, zooming out to the rest of the province, just where you'd expect it in the northeast, in central BC, and through the southern interior, a bit of it spreading out as we see this system move through. As for tonight, we have pretty seasonal skies. We have chances of rain through much of BC. So what you see here through the south and on the coast, these are just chances of rain, by no means guaranteed. We'll just see those showers sort of pop up as we saw in the sort of accumulation forecast. For tomorrow, we again have some showers popping up throughout the province, just as they sort of ease out of the area. So just a few scattered showers possible for parts of the southern interior as the system just moves south and east. But again, none of this is guaranteed. You can see we have a small chance of some lightning showers in the Kootenays, but once again, I wouldn't count on too much more rain coming for a lot of these areas as we get into tomorrow morning. And here in Vancouver, just we see those clear skies. We see temperatures come up quite a bit inland on Thursday, And then as we get into the weekend, again, a small chance of rain returns.
I gotta say, I am enjoying the rain. I get to cozy up on the couch. I love it.
It is nice, but just give it a month.
I'll try. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, we've been speaking about Prime Minister Justin Trudeau linking the Indian government to the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was a Sikh temple president in Surrey and an advocate for the Kalistan separatist movement. Our Ellen Morrow breaks down how that movement took root in this country.
Tensions over the Kalistan movement have plagued Indo-Canadian relations for years, with supporters of an independent Sikh nation outspoken in Canada.
India feels that Canada is not taking any action to curtail or prosecute those who seek to destabilize or to hurt India. Canada also feels its own citizens are under threat.
The Kalistan movement wants the creation of a Sikh state, including Punjab in northern India. Sikhs are a religious minority in India, but in Punjab, they're the majority.
In 1983, the fight for Kalistan.
In the 1980s, murderous acts by some Sikh separatists led to the military's Golden Temple massacre and other attacks against the Sikh community.
So there are many individuals in Canada whose family members may have been attacked or kidnapped or disappeared by the Indian state, and they are seeking out justice for those activities.
Divisions over Kalistan were on display at this Diwali celebration near Toronto last year. Large crowds for and against the movement facing off. This statue of Indian leader Mahatma Gandhi was defaced with the word Kalistan. Graffiti, too, at this Hindu temple attacking Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
When we look at the activism in Canada, we've seen some of the posters that have had explicit detail of sort of hatred towards the Indian government. You know, that can be disconcerting for the Indian government.
India has repeatedly accused Canada, home to the largest Sikh diaspora in the world, of sheltering extremists. Sikh militants were blamed for the Air India bombing in 1985, killing 329 people, the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history. India alleged Hardeep Singh Nijjar was linked to a 2007 bombing in Punjab, which he repeatedly denied. Before his death, Nijjar helped plan this unofficial Kalistan referendum, thousands of supporters lining up to vote at his temple in BC.
I would say that it has a long history here in Canada.
This professor says the push for Kalistan in Canada is stronger than in Punjab itself.
The word Kalistan would be known if it was uttered in the Punjab in India, but it does not have the level of organization or support. There isn't a widespread movement for a separate state.
Many Sikhs fleeing the violence of the early 80s made their way to Canada.
There were Sikh families that felt persecuted in India, and as such, some emigrated to Canada for that safety.
Some now fear for that safety, with yet another deepening of tensions.
What we're seeing is hatred on both sides, and this is getting very serious.
It's a remote island off the coast of Quebec. While few people will ever visit it, there's a good reason it's been named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. What makes it so special is next.
So let's see who goes with the pace through the first 400. Albert will probably sit off as well, maybe his compatriot as well, the tall Frenchman Mézières. So Arup just watching on the outside, he was going to come across. Daniel Rowden just slipping across to the inside. The Brit looking for a good position as they all break, as the pace finds his place at the front. It is indeed the tall Canadian who slots in behind him with Rowden third.
Yeah, Arup, a huge physical presence, makes him tough to get past as well on these bends here at Hayward Field. Not quite going with the tempo, they're not going with a pacemaker. Everybody else queuing up behind him, but Arup loves to lead, loves to control things. At the moment, being allowed to do so, back in second place, about 3 meters down as they come through to. They wanted 49.5, that's great pacemaking, 49.1.
Great pacemaking, and Arup actually actually fed off that. He didn't slow down, and Wanyonyi, who was really moving up on his shoulder, had to let him go. And Arop really is striking for home early off this quick pace. So he really fancies himself, but he hasn't got away here. Wanyonyi there, the Frenchman just moving up. Messiaen into third place past Daniel Rowden of Great Britain. Sajati on the outside. Kinyaman looks as though he's lost the pace at the minute. And Arop just a little bit of labour, but he's so strong. He's got a 2-metre lead. 150 to go, and the tall Canadian, the world champion, still looking strong. Wanyonyi trying to chase, and Robert finishing quickly as well. Sajati on the outside, and Sajati's charging, and Wanyonyi's there. Look at him, he's hanging on to this. The crowd are running home. I think Wanyonyi's going to get there. The Kenyan is just forging ahead. He takes it. 1:42.79. What a brilliant race. Well, Arop won't be too pleased about not coming away with a victory, having dragged the others round to an incredible time. It is a meeting record. It's going to be a national record for the Canadian. But Wanyonyi, with 2 minutes to go, was hanging in. 150 to go, he was still there. Top of the home straight. Did he have anything else? Sajati dragged him through. So Wanyonyi takes the win, this incredible young talent. Couldn't catch Arop at the World Championships, but he did today.
Brilliant running and made by Arop, you have to say. He just loved to take it to the opposition, doesn't he? I'm surprised he faded with about 30 metres to go. Look at the pressure being applied here by Sajati. Wanyonyi just easing past. Talk about a clash of titans there. That win by a very few inches for the Kenyan. Fastest time in the world this year. How appropriate is that? Talk about ending the season with a bang.
Yeah, it's some consolation for Sajati as well. That's a new personal best for the Algerian. Mentioned that national record for Arop, and Wanyonyi, well, of course for him, he's got Rhodesia to aim at in terms of a national record, but really, really impressive from the young Kenyan.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Wherever you are in BC, local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. Download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
It was a day of thrill rides and excitement at a festival in Western Japan. The main draw, huge floats that raced through the city streets. 34 shrine floats took part this month, each one pulled by participants at hair-raising high speeds through the city streets. The traditional festival has taken place for the past 300 years. Yeah, they are going very fast. All right, to Quebec now, where an island home to fossils more than 400 million years old has become a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Anticosti was the first added to its list today. The rocky stretch of land in the Gulf of St. Lawrence is bigger than PEI and home to about 200 people. Sarah Levitt has more on what this designation means for them and the island.
A historic announcement celebrated by those who pushed to make it happen. Quebec's Anticosti Island now officially a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Congratulations to Canada on behalf of the entire committee.
17 times bigger than Montreal, Anticosti is home to just 200 people. The designation a result of lobbying by residents and local Indigenous leaders. The island is lush with greenery and wildlife like the white-tailed deer. But what makes it unique in the world is its geology, dating back more than 440 million years.
This very interesting time interval is preserved, and that's very unique to find it in a place where the rocks are well exposed, where they're not deformed by mountain building events, where the rocks haven't been buried so deep.
Anticosti's cliffs and fossils tell the story of the very first mass extinction in the world.
and in pristine, beautiful, it's in wonderful shape.
We can study this first mass extinction and learn so much about our history.
A history which locals felt was threatened. The Quebec government once announced it would allow natural gas fracking on the island. It ultimately reversed that decision when faced with heavy opposition. Anticosti's rivers and almost the entire coastline are covered under the designation, protecting it from industrial activity.
It's a new era for the community.
But there's also hope the designation will bring in ecotourism dollars to a place with very little revenue.
We hope it's going to bring development and many opportunities for them, like to become an international destination.
A chance to show off and learn from what UNESCO says is exceptional history frozen in time. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Just breathtaking. I imagine a lot of people will want to visit now for sure. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News. We'll see you tomorrow.